Hi everyone, it's Adam with Milo's Restoration, and today I've got a set of cane chairs that I'm going to be refinishing for a client. They want to do a white high gloss finish on them, and so I picked them up and I got to cleaning them and as well as sanding them. But I kind of debated on whether or not to use a primer with them, but I decided on it, and it was kind of dark outside, so you'll see in the priming, so I apologize for that. But other than that, it was just my routine process. Half a bottle of simple green mixed with water, sprayed it, used a clean rinse bucket and a different bucket to like squeeze the rag out in. Cleaned everything and then sanded it with 280 grit with my Surf Prep sander and a like sponge type pad. So this is just a high end Harbor Freight cup gun. It's like a $200 one. I mean, it runs on an air compressor. My air compressor is really too small to run it, but it does work for thin coatings. And I don't really like it very much because of the amount of overspray that's needed to really atomize the coating well. Um, you know, they use less volume of air and more pressure, and what comes with that is a bunch of overspray. Something that we're kind of used to getting away from with the other HVLP turbines. I like to stick to the turbines. I know people think that they're a waste of time in certain areas, and I agree with you. But it's just they're consistent. They're easy to use, but they're also a little bit hard to clean. So I think that one thing about a cup gun is that it's very easy to clean. So normally for client's house at painting, what I have is two 20 by 20 drop cloths that I put out, and they're just canvas polybacked, and there's no way that any overspray is getting on anything with those. But you know, in this particular situation, I'm about to etch the concrete because I'm putting an epoxy coating on it anyway, so I didn't really care. Um, so I used some denatured alcohol to clean the hardware off, and they were caked with some kind of stuff, and I just spray painted them gold. I really didn't like it. So what I did was since this is such a flat surface, I actually just took my Surf Prep sander, sanded everything off, and sanded the brass, and it looked pretty good. So I'll show you that later on. And now here I've got some Benjamin Moore Command that I'm mixing up in high gloss. It's Chantilly lace. Mixed about 2 ounces of water with it. You know, I really don't like playing with chemistry very much, but I felt like it was being cold and everything. It just really needed it. Using an Apollo HVLP here. A 1.3 nozzle and needle set. And I've got probably about a 2-inch pattern going. And basically, you know, here's another thing about painting that nobody really tells you that I kind of wish that I could learn faster, which is that, like, if you were to paint something like this on a hot day, basically you'd be dusting overspray on all of these little spindles by doing this. And so you don't want it to be too dry. You know, you want to put a little bit on, but you want to make sure that everything has a wet look by the time you're done. And it doesn't hurt to move fast too, because that way, you know, you want to take your time, but at the same time, you want to be able to move quickly enough to where the paint that is on the other side of the chair has not already dried and you're not just throwing paint everywhere. You know, these really put out a minimal amount of overspray, so that helps a lot with it. Just giving it a quick sanding before I blow it off. You know, this is a good example of something that I'm doing that while I think that I'm decent at flat surfaces, I'm really still learning with curved areas. And in chairs, I'm really still learning how to spray them. It's kind of difficult sometimes, and I'm just trying to figure it out, just like everybody else. Um, the gun didn't really have any burps or anything like that, you know, from getting air bubbles by turning it like this. But this just reinforces the idea that I either need to get a pressure pot or a PPS set up for this gun. And I looked at a PPS gun by 3M, and I'm probably going to get one. It's probably about $200. And that would allow me to spray upside down or whatever I wanted to. And, you know, you don't really have to worry about getting air in it and getting a spit. So that's something to look into. But you need a bunch of adapters and everything else like that. And it's just kind of annoying. So this is a second coat, I guess you could call it, but it's really not because I'm not really going over what I did the first time. I did let it dry still, the recoat time of about 45 minutes to an hour. You really want to wait an hour. But I just went ahead and sprayed the angles that I really couldn't get. You know, this is really just for color. Um, so far the paint has felt relatively smooth, and I'm pretty surprised by that. I figured I'd have a lot of rough areas, but um, yeah, I mean, you know, I just flip it over, try to get all the angles, do one coat for color, and then, you know, the final coat that I'll do will be the areas that you will feel and touch the most because you want those to be the most smooth. If you got a little bit of rough overspray underneath the spindle or underneath the bottom of the chair somewhere, it's not the end of the world. So, you know, you really just want the areas that you're going to touch and come in contact the most to feel the best. And so I saved those for last, and those are going to be my final coat. That'll be the top rail and the sides. Just got a little bit of spackle here. I'm going to go back and sand that with a 400 grit block later. And That's just the areas that I noticed that looked really bad in the cane. So in total, I probably did about 3 or 4 coats, and it's just kind of necessary for high gloss. You'll see later. I think the thing that was kind of problematic was that I think I got a little bit heavy-handed with it, because not because like I wasn't getting good coverage with the paint, but because of the fact that with it being there's so many little spindles and everything, I was trying to keep everything wet. And especially once I moved inside for the final coats, I was really trying to keep everything wet, but that was kind of problematic. But I mean, if you look at my spray pattern here, I'm really not putting on a lot of paint. Like I really, it's a minimal amount, honestly. So I tried to just kind of accumulate, a good surface coating by doing that. I think the thickness of the paint was a little bit of a problem though. Um, Subsequent coats, these chairs are challenging. This is not something that I'd recommend spraying for your first project. A desk or dresser would be a lot easier, something like that. A lot of flat surfaces, learn how to spray. I struggle with this, and I feel like I've had a lot of experience with these guns. I'm not the best painter in the world, but I mean, I feel like I have had a little bit of time using them, and still, I just struggled to get a good wet surface that without really just like slopping the paint on. So, I mean, that's something to consider whenever you're looking at one of these chairs and bidding it or something. So here's the chairs at the client's house with the newly upholstered seats. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.